This presentation is intended to help you with your interview project. I know that many of you have done most of your interviews, which you should have. Now it's time to write it up, and this should help you with doing that. So here's what was in the syllabus, and I know you've looked at this and looked at it in detail to know exactly what you needed to do. Also the rubric that goes along with it. So you were to choose 3 participants to work with in the interview project and then interview those participants at least 2 times. So that's going to give you 6 documents to be able to use for your data. And even though that's a lot of transcriptions, it's going to give you much better results. So this is a difference from last year when I taught the class. They only interviewed 1 person, and although there were a couple of people that were able to get meaningful data, the class overall, when I got the feedback, said that if they were able to interview, if they interviewed more people, their data would have been more meaningful for them and it would have been more like a real research project. So I did increase the participants this year, and you'll see that as I'm going through the slides. So here's the first part of the rubric. So what we're going to do is look at the rubric, and then I'm going to give you some information. So I took Melanie Law's project. You saw her presentation this past week, and I thought it would be interesting for you to see how it started in this particular class and then what she has taken it to. So here's the rubric on participant selection, background information, and rapport. So we're going to start with the participant selection. So you need to tell me why you selected the 3 participants using citations from those and explaining. So it's up to you to convince the reader, which is me, that you know what you're talking about through your writing. So make sure you give detailed explanation on your participants and why you selected them. Now, going a little bit out of order, this is like building the rapport, and here Melanie talks about how she met with her participant and began to build the rapport with her. Hers was interesting because of the connection, or she didn't want the student to see her as a faculty member, so she introduced herself by her first name instead of as a faculty member. And then finally, she did talk about the background information that she learned about the student. So all of that probably took about a page, page and a half to get going about the participant, the rapport, and the background. So next we moved into the structure and semi-structured interview protocol. I did tell you that if you want to do both of your interviews with your 3 participants semi-structured, that's fine. Just make sure that you tell me why you chose to do it that way. Otherwise, I will expect a structured interview protocol for the first one. So you can see that you're supposed to do multiple interviews and explain the development of the questions with citations to support. So here's an example of the explanation that Melanie gave in the beginning. Notice that she did include a consent form. You do not have to do that. But she starts in the second paragraph talking about how she developed her structured questions. And she did that from her lit review, how she had conducted. And you probably have done some reading on your subject matter, so you're going to, if you do structured, you're going to have to defend why you did that. Here is a sample of her structured interview questions that were in the appendix, and I put them up here just so you could see. They definitely go in the appendix, but I wanted you to see how they went along with her structured interview. Then she explains these interview questions, how she developed them, and of course has citations to back that up. So then she moved on to a semi-structured interview, just as the rubric says, how she developed these questions, again, with citations, always. Academic writing has a lot of citations. And then Appendix D was where her semi-structured interview questions were located, and I just put them here for you to see. So moving along, after you explain how you developed your questions, you're going to talk about the methods used to record, transcribe, and organize your data, and then the methods used to analyze. So my suggestion is that you start your methods section and then have 3 subsections here for record, transcribe, and organize, and then you can add analyze as well. So you want to describe those, allow me to clearly understand and justify using those citations. So here's the methods section in this particular paper, and you can see how she structured this as record, transcribe, and organize, and how she backed that up and explained it. There's record. Here is transcribe. And then here is the transcript for interview 1, so you can see what that actually looked like. Again, it was in Appendix C, but I wanted you to see that here. And then there's her transcript for interview 2. Now you're going to have quite a few more because we're trying to make this as real an experience as possible, and you'll be able to get some great data. Then the organize section. This is part of the organize section. All of these are clips, not the whole paper, because I wouldn't want you to follow exactly what she's done because your study's very different. But these are clips. And then methods used to analyze data. She starts to explain this here. And then she further really details it, and that's what you need to do when describing your analysis. Don't just say what type of analysis you did, deductive, inductive, whatever it might be, but then walk me through the process. That's what you have to do when you're writing a dissertation, is walk the readers through the process of exactly how you did it. Don't leave anything left to question. Here's some more explanation on it. And again, more. You can see how detailed, and I'm only giving you pieces of this, but you can see how detailed that I expect the description to be on the analysis. Because you are in a qualitative analysis course, this analysis section is extremely important. From the analysis, you are going to take your codes and they're going to collapse into minor themes, and then from there you're going to group them together and make major themes. So I should see your major and minor themes thoroughly described with evidence from your interview. So that's probably going to be some quotes to support what you have found within your themes. The narrative story is embedded within your themes. It is not really a separate section unless you completely want it to be, but it does not have to be. I should be able to get a story of your individuals, your 3 individuals, through the themes. Now I know you're going to talk about various individuals within a theme, so you might talk about all 3 of them. So it's not that I need to follow one person all the way through, but that I'm getting the narrative, I'm getting the idea of these 3 people, giving me a clear and vivid picture of the people that you interviewed. So it just needs to make sense to me, not just that you describe your themes, but that you're actually telling a story of these people throughout your themes. So this is the beginning of the section, of the findings section in your paper. And according to APA format, you need to go back and revisit your purpose. You might even revisit your research questions there, because this is where you actually report what you were able to answer within your research questions. Now, here's the first major theme that Melanie found. It was just all different. And then you can see that she starts with kind of explaining what that category meant. And then this is a minor theme, college academics, within it. So this was how academics was different in college than in high school. And then as she went on, she actually supported this with quotes. Now, because this quote was more than 40 words, it had to be the indent quote. Not always. If you look in the middle paragraph, it can actually just be a quote that's there. Then moving on, you can see this was another minor theme under the just all different major theme. So adjustment, and she's talking about having to adjust to college. Then we find the other major theme. She found two major themes, connections. That's because she interviewed one person and it was very hard for them to find some themes. So again, that's why we increased it a little bit. So old connections to our family and friends was a minor theme. All right, so then you're going to talk about the skills that you have developed through the interview process. And the purpose of this is for you to give clear and actionable steps on how to continue to develop those qualitative research skills. So within the reflection, Melanie talked about the skills, and you can read this. So it's kind of like bearing your soul here. What did you struggle with? What skills did you develop? And what do you think you still need to work on? And then the reflective journal. So the reflective journal is done while you are interviewing. So we've talked about this, how you're going to think about your interview after it's finished. Jot some notes down, because that's going to help you to move forward. It like informs your next set of interviews and your questions. So it can be audio recorded or it can be written, whatever works for you. But you're going to talk about it in this paper. So here is how Melanie started her reflective journal, and she included it in Appendix E. That is a really good article, Slotnick and Janasic, 2011. Look that up. You will find some really good information on reflective journals that can help support you in this area. So here's her reflective journal after her first interview, what she was thinking after it. Notice she started to put some themes, but they definitely change as they go along. These are just her first thoughts. And then her second reflective journal looked a bit different in the way it was organized, but still had some thoughts. She continued to start to develop some codes that she thought she would use as she was reading through it, those inductive codes, family, friends, other connections. And then she started with her themes. You can see her start to work that out there. And then she actually had a theme of home and then realized it really didn't work. So there she kind of wrote out her themes. So it's really like your little workbook, your reflective workbook on how you're coming up with these ideas. Your field notes are the little notes that you jot down during your interview. So we've talked about in class that a lot is said through body language, noises, any other particular important pieces. So I want to see your field note. So Melanie talked about them in the paper, just a brief paragraph, and then they were included in Appendix H. And there's her field notes for interview 1. And her field notes for interview 2. So then I ask that you put your audio recordings in a Dropbox, and you're going to share those with me. And then you're going to transcribe your word-for-word audio recordings, but you're going to clean that up a little bit. So you saw some samples that Melanie had, and I've shown you a sample of mine in class. So it needs to be well organized and able for your reader to easily follow. And then the overall paper should be free of spelling errors, grammar errors, syntax errors, strong use of academic language, and of course completely follows APA format. So this was actually the introduction to the paper. I put it here because the rubric doesn't include that. However, APA format requires an introduction. So this was actually the very first paragraph that Melanie had before she started with her participant section. And then, of course, she had references. This is just a glimpse of them. So I hope that this helps you to understand your interview project as you begin to put it together over the next month or so. Of course, your interviews need to be completed, and then you can start putting the pieces together, seeing how you're coding, getting all the documents where they need to be to put the project together. If you have any questions or want me to meet with you, I will be more than happy to do that. You can email me and we'll set up a time for you to come in and talk about these things. Whatever works for you. Remember, I'm here to help you. I want you to be successful. But the number one thing that you have to do is follow the rubric. So make sure that you use the rubric and that you followed all directions for the assignment.